So Keir Starmer just confirmed that 2026 will be the year that the EU and the UK come to freeze your money. We've got a brand new New Year's update from Keir, but he's not the only leader who has come out and said some really interesting things this week. Now, do not forget, it is January 1st. Today is the first day of a new partnership between the EU and the UK where they are now spying on all of your online transactions. That's right. All transactions online are reported to tax authorities beginning today on January 1st. And let's not forget, we got this update from the EU over Christmas where they said they are literally going to kick MasterCard and Visa out of the EU in favor of their EU CBDC. We've got a lot of updates to hit you guys with this week because we got new videos coming from Ursula von der Leyen telling us what she's going to do to free speech next. And let's not forget, we also have an update from Christine Lagarde yesterday about which countries are going to be forced into using the euro. Today's jam-packed full of new videos. I want to start today's deep dive by looking at this brand new video from Keir Starmer.
Been tough in Britain for a while. For many, life is still harder than it should be. You long for a bit more money in your pockets, a meal out, a holiday, the chance to make a special family moment extra special. In 2026, the choices we've made will mean more people will begin to feel positive change in your bills, your communities, and your health service. But even more people will feel once again a sense of hope, a belief that things can and will get better. Feel that the promise of renewal can become a reality.
So how is he going to make things get better or feel better? Listen to this.
And my government will make it that reality. More police on the streets by March.
Why is there going to be more police on the street by March? It's an interesting date.
Energy bills down, and the number of new health hubs up in April.
Okay, so I'm going to play the rest of Keir's video here in a moment, but I just want to again remind you of the hypocrisy. He's saying that electricity prices are going to come down, but look at them. Electricity prices in the UK are going absolutely bananas. And why is he promising that we're going to be seeing more police on the street by March? Is it to enforce this brand new law that's being jammed through today on January 1st, which is going to allow the EU and the UK to share what's used to be anonymous details about the types of transactions that we are making online? I think it probably has something to do with the money, and I think it also might have something to do with this poor user of a bank account in the UK. We can see HSBC has actually blocked a customer from using its mobile application after detecting that the phone the user was using had a password manager installed on it. Just think about how wild that is, that now banks have the ability to see all of the applications installed on your phone. I think what we're seeing is just the admittance that you're going to have less and less control over your money, especially if you're from Bulgaria. Because Christine Lagarde, I want to come back to Keir, but I want to pivot to Christine Lagarde's update that she also gave us on New Year's Eve. Let's listen to this one.
Prosperous New Year. This is not any New Year for the Euro area.
Oh.
We're welcoming Bulgaria as a new member of the Eurozone. It will be the 21st country joining, and we are delighted to welcome all the Bulgarians into the euro area using the euro. I promised that I would toast that moment, and of course, I will raise a glass with some good Bulgarian wine to celebrate the occasion. Happy New Year.
So it's really strange, and let's just call it what it is, concerning that the EU has claimed another victim is Bulgaria is not the only country who has signed on to using an EU-mandated digital currency wallet. Let's look at this chart here, because this is looking at the countries in the EU set to roll out a digital ID in 2026. Now, again, you might be thinking, wait on a minute, you said CBDC, you said digital wallet, digital money, Luke. Why are you talking about digital IDs? Well, look at the very strange wording that they use for this update. They might have told us accidentally what their real plans are. Read what is the title of this image. EU countries set to roll out digital ID wallets in 2026. Wait on a minute. Haven't our leaders been telling us that the digital IDs and the CBDCs have nothing to do with each other? Why are the digital IDs now being called digital ID wallets? Is it because they're accidentally telling us what I've been trying to tell you guys for 6 months? I've been saying this for a while now. I believe that the digital ID, this is kind of like the prison cage. Once you're in a prison cage, your government will be able to surveil everything that you say online. So free speech will be tracked, monitored, and you're going to have police knocking at your door for everything you say online. And a lot of people say, Luke, you're just being a conspiracy theorist. This is just the UK. It's just the UK losing their mind. I've got some videos showing that my poor friends over there in Australia, they are now having police sent to their door as well for what Australians are saying online. I'm going to maybe talk a little bit more about that later on in the stream. I don't want to get there yet. I want to talk a little bit more about the money. Because again, the digital ID is the cage, but I've been warning you guys for 6 months now, or 5 years really. You're not going to see just digital IDs rolled out in your country. You're also going to see the CBDC, because the CBDC, the digital money, the control that this gives our governments is the key that locks the cage door. This is why we're seeing all of the countries with the most amount of debt roll out digital IDs in lockstep. Think about it. The UK, Canada, Portugal, Italy, Spain, New Zealand, Australia, China. They all are rolling out digital IDs and CBDCs because it is the cage and the key to the cage. Once you're in there, and once you can be kicked out of the monetary system or have your savings frozen for what you say online, that is when you are truly imprisoned in what is and what will be the digital panopticon or the digital prison. It's coming. Now, to prove that, let's tune in to what the Commissioner of the European Union recently said. Now, this video is a week old, but I haven't shown it to you guys yet. This was also coincidentally said on Christmas Eve, so the 24th. Let's listen to what Ursula thinks about free speech in what is supposed to be the most democratic regions around the world.
As technology evolves, we need to build up societal immunity around information manipulation. Because research has shown that pre-bunking is much more successful than debunking.
Think about that for a minute. So I know I don't have audio. The audio is terrible in this video, but you guys have subtitles. She's saying that pre-bunking is more effective than debunking. Now, what is pre-bunking? Doesn't that sound an awful lot like what George Orwell wrote about in the 1980s when he talked about this concept of thought crime? This is exactly what the movie, what's the movie? The wife and I watched it the other night. It's got Tom Cruise in it. They have the things implanted into their eyeball. I can't think of it. But thought crime is what Ursula von der Leyen is talking about. Research says that pre-bunking is more effective than debunking. So what they're talking about and kind of, whispering behind with their Orwellian doublespeak is they want to pre-bunk you. Anybody who might say something offensive in the future, they're just going to be turned off. Their money is going to be turned off and they're going to be thrown in prison, like the 30 people arrested a day in the UK right now. So let's play the rest of this clip. Again, it's got subtitles. Apologies, guys. Couldn't find the one with the more audio.
Pre-bunking is basically the opposite of debunking. In short, prevention is preferable to cure. Perhaps as if you think of information manipulation as a virus. Instead of treating an infection, once it has taken hold, that is debunking. It is much better to vaccinate so that the body is inoculated. Pre-bunking is the same approach. Because disinformation relies on people passing it on to others. It is essential that people know what malign information's influence is and what the techniques are that are behind it. And as the knowledge goes up, our chances of being influenced goes down. And that builds up the society resilience.
So I think Bitcoin Barber sums up this clip pretty well. Pre-bunking sounds a lot like tyranny. That's exactly what it sounds like. And I hate to, again, I'm not going to be a complete doomer in this video. We're going to talk about solutions as well, but I don't want to sound like a doomer, but it is coming everywhere. This is a global push. We can see in Australia what is happening right now. We literally have you can see it, the UK style knocks on the door have started in Australia. We literally, I'm not going to play all the videos because I have a ton of videos for you guys today, but we have Australians now getting knocks on the door for what they say online on social media. And guess what Australia also wants to do? You guessed it, CBDC. It is a very simple approach. It's a two-step approach. They will move in waves. They will move in tandem. The countries you see a digital ID, you will also see a CBDC. It's as simple as that. The digital ID is the prison cage. The CBDC is the key that locks you in forever. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but trust me, I was in Australia in 2020, 2021, and early 2022 when the prison cage was closed and only people with a certain medical status could leave. I'm going to be careful with what I say next. I love this comment. The Ministry of Truth. Let's not forget, the US actually had a real Ministry of Truth. Now, I want to talk about the US more momentarily, but I don't want to finish looking at the UK and the EU yet, because I want to break down a little bit more about what this new update means. Again, it's January 1st. The EU and the UK have officially pushed through their new law that's going to require all crypto transactions to be reported to the government. So here's a tweet that I saw talking about this again this morning. Today, the UK begins collecting crypto transaction records to crack down on quote unquote tax evasion. This is the big move. Again, this is why people are leaving the UK in droves. You can see it very clearly here. It's kind of wild how many millionaires are leaving the UK. More than China. Think about that for a minute. Just think about that for a minute. The country that's supposed to be all of this democratic, this and that. Oh, no. Sorry. Jury trials. Gonzo. Free speech. Gone. Pre-bunking. Incoming. It's absolutely coming to a doorstep near you if you are living in a Western country. Again, it's getting scary. I've got more videos to show you just how scary it is going to get. Let's talk about solutions more in a moment, because like I said, I've got 100 videos to show you because we've been getting a lot of strange updates this week in particular. Again, they always push these through on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or New Year's Eve or New Year's Day when nobody's watching. Now have a look at this video. I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's not in English, but it does have subtitles. Read them very carefully.
Les importations polluantes.
1er janvier doit entrer en vigueur en Europe la taxe carbone aux frontières, Léo.
Acier, aluminium, ciment, engrais, les entreprises devront désormais déclarer le contenu carbone des produits qu'elles importent, avec l'objectif évidemment de lutter contre les importations polluantes. Mais le dispositif semble bien s'annoncer comme un nouveau choc administratif pour les PME, Jean-Baptiste Huette.
Pour expliquer aux entreprises la marche à suivre, Bercy a publié un guide pratique pas à pas de 158 pages. Concrètement, une entreprise qui importerait de l'aluminium va devoir s'inscrire sur un registre européen, demander ensuite un statut autorisé, avec attestation de régularité fiscale, liasse fiscale, chiffre financier sur 3 ans, nombre d'employés, prévision d'importation détaillée produit par produit. Et c'est ensuite que ça se complique, puisque l'importateur va devoir récupérer auprès de son fournisseur étranger les données d'émission de l'usine de production. Si ces données sont incomplètes ou fausses, la valeur par défaut sera appliquée avec une majoration pouvant atteindre 30%. Le chemin de croix ne s'arrête pas là, puisqu'un reporting trimestriel obligatoire est mis en place. Si les grandes entreprises sont plutôt rodées à ce type d'exercice, les PME semblent en revanche beaucoup plus exposées. Il faut comprendre des notions d'émissions directes, indirectes, des règles de traçabilité. Bref, c'est un travail d'ingénieur carbone. Si Paris et Bruxelles ont exprimé ces derniers mois leur volonté d'alléger le poids des normes, dans les faits, c'est plus compliqué.
So the most important part about that video was right at the beginning. Beginning January 1st, all European companies will be required to openly declare how much of a carbon footprint the products that they're importing into the EU produce. Again, I continued to say this. Countries with the most debt, they will be forced to create the most mind-numbingly stupid laws and distractions so that people do not have the time and the free-thinking ability to just look at what their lying eyes are showing them. Tyranny on the streets, dirty streets, dangerous streets. Again, back to this clip from Keir Starmer, he was kind of saying the quiet parts out loud. Everybody's aware that the UK is not safe. It's not working for them. And his solution? More police on the street in March. Again, why March? What's going to happen in the months before March? Why not actually tackle the problem that's actually causing a lot of the dangerous things that need the police on the street? Of course, because that's not a part of their plan. Their plan is more control. Their plan is create and import, to use that word from that video, more situations that will create danger, division, and distractions to allow them to print all of the money that they need to print to devalue their debt. We're going to talk about the debt more in a moment. I want to play the rest of Keir Starmer's New Year's Eve update video for you guys.
For local communities. And with that change, decline will be reversed. That opportunity for you and pride in your community can be restored. I share the frustration about the pace of change. The challenges we face were decades in the making, and renewal is not an overnight job. But putting our country back on a stable footing will become our strength. Strength that means we can support you with the cost of living. Rail fares, prescription charges, fuel duty, all frozen. £150 cut
Your savings frozen. That's what's coming next.
from your energy bills. A boost once again to the national minimum wage. A major cut to the cost of childcare. We are getting Britain back on track. By staying the course, we will defeat the decline and division offered by others. For all the times that have been tough, I hope the festive period has brought good moments, precious time with your family, a chance to celebrate what's most important to you. I wish you more of those moments next year, when things start to feel easier, when politics shows it can help again, when Britain turns the corner, with our future now in our control. The real Britain will shine through more.
So it's wild that Keir Starmer's kind of saying the quiet parts out loud. Politics doesn't help anyone anymore. Maybe it will next year. Of course, what I always say on this channel, you can never, ever, ever vote your way out of tyranny. Never works. Show me any civilization or any communist collapse where a person was able to say, yeah, you know what? I'm not okay with you guys taking over the means of production or taxing me 99% of my money out of the wazoo. It never happens. You give a tyrant an inch and they will take a mile. Now, let's talk a little bit more about solutions, because I think everybody in the chat sums it up nicely. My skin crawls when Starmer talks as well. We got a good comment here. What does a poor person trapped in the UK do? What should you do? I'll show you with a chart exactly what you should do. Join the 15,000 millionaires leaving the country every single year. Always pay very close attention to what the smart money is doing. The smart money can see the writing on the wall. The smart money can see, oh, hang on a minute. Britain has been talking about digital pound caps for years. Wait on a minute. Doesn't that mean they're essentially going to freeze my savings? EU is also obsessed with the word of holding limits. The reason why is because they're going to freeze your money. I know I've talked about this topic a lot, but I really feel like I need to be updating you guys, because sometimes you need to hear the same message 14 times before it's drummed into your head. They are not turning around. They are going full steam ahead with Orwell. Again, I gave you guys a Christmas Day update last week. We went live on Christmas, or maybe it was Christmas, to talk about this. On Christmas Eve, and look at this, 5:24 a.m. in the morning, the EU came out with a little bit of an update while everybody was distracted and said, yeah, you know what? All council members in the EU have literally signed off on a law that allows the EU to have holding limits. You can read it right here. The council compromises government ministers from the 27 nations in the bloc which shape EU law with the EU Parliament. Its endorsement signals broad national alignment around the central bank digital currency's design. Headline: ECB gains backing from Council of EU for caps on digital euro holdings. They are literally saying the quiet parts out loud. I'm still kind of shocked at how quickly this is accelerating. I think Britain is absolutely gone. To Great Gazoo, that's a great name. Great Gazoo's comment says Britain is absolutely gone. Again, what do you suggest a person trapped in the UK to do? Escape while you still can. Again, they're going to try to imprison you with two things. The digital cage will be the digital ID. It might be possible to skirt around the digital ID for the next year or two. VPNs. But again, if you're making money online, the UK's already said, mandatory for all workers, you must have a digital ID. So unless you have sovereignty over your own income stream, you're cooked. It'll be as difficult as it was back in 2020 trying to go shopping and not wearing a face diaper. Again, I got kicked out of a ton of shops because I just refused to bend the knee to something that I knew was a lie. I was never going to wear a muzzle or a face diaper for something that I personally didn't believe in. And I got kicked out of shops. Even when 2021 rolled around, you had to get your phone out and scan a QR code for the doors to the grocery shops to actually open and close. You couldn't get in unless you showed them your medical status. So again, what can you do if you're in the UK? Like if you don't have a digital ID, it'll eventually be illegal to go shopping. That's coming. Absolutely, that's coming. So again, you need sovereignty over how you create your own money. Quit the 9 to 5. Learn to make money online. Escape the system. Preferably move while you still can, because it will only get worse and it will get harder to move. This is why France just continues to push through the idea of citizenship-based taxation. This is why Canada and Australia are also making it more difficult to leave the country and not pay taxes to the home country. Again, that's why I recently went to Paraguay. I'm getting my Paraguay tax residency. I spent probably 10 grand getting to Paraguay because I'm a little bit anal with the times that I like to fly. So I only fly during the day. And I stopped in at like 4 different countries to get to Paraguay and then go back to where I call home, just because I knew it is so important to get that Paraguay tax residency. So that's another thing you can do. Escape the UK. Get tax residency somewhere else. Paraguay. A lot of people talk about Dubai. I chose Paraguay because I like South America. And you don't have to live there. Again, what else can you do? Hold a form of money that they cannot steal, they cannot track, trace, or tax. That's why I always tell you guys to learn more about Bitcoin. Again, if you haven't got your hands on Bitcoin, check out how you can buy it or mine it. I like mining because you don't have to give your tax identifying information up to an exchange who right now is required by law to give up your ID to the tax authorities. That's why I always encourage you guys to learn more about Blockware. You can buy the mining rigs directly from Blockware, or you can take advantage of their hosted mining service, where, as you can see, they've got 6 different locations in Kentucky, Iowa, Texas, and Georgia, where they've gone and actually found the cheap electricity and plugged in the miners for you. All you have to do is give them a Bitcoin address. So again, book a call with the guys at Blockware if you're going to learn more about how you can mine Bitcoin to get your hands on it. Something else you can do to escape the tyranny. Put your Bitcoin in your own self-custody. This is why I always tell you guys about Trezor. Great, simple, easy to use hardware wallet, and they are still running a holiday and New Year's sale for you guys. So taking self-custody of your Bitcoin is still cheap. There shouldn't be any excuse when you can get 30% off the Trezor Safe 5, 30% off the Trezor Safe 3, and there's a lot of other goodies and bargains you can get. Again, this offer expires in the next couple of days, so take advantage of it while it lasts. Putting your Bitcoin into your own self-custody should be an absolute non-negotiable. That's something else you can do. What else can you do? Honestly, if I was in the UK, I would be really, really, really careful about what you say online. Like, if I was still in the UK mid-2025, everything I've seen since then, I would have gotten out immediately. Like, it would have been, I was talking to a friend about this who's in the EU, and he said, oh, what do? I don't make a ton of money. I said, look, it is catastrophic right now in the UK. It's at the situation where even if you make 2K a month, I would be living in poverty for 3 months. I'd save half my paycheck. I'd go to Bali with $3,000 and try to figure it out. Because it's not as hard as you think to make money online. And what do they say? Necessity is the mother of all invention. When you're forced to make money, you can figure it out. And the cost of living in Vietnam in particular is so cheap. You've probably got, if you got 3K in your back pocket, you've probably got a few months of living expenses to figure it out. Like, that's how catastrophic it is right now in the UK. And it's, again, I don't like to make negative predictions, but that's how bad it's going to become in the EU, Australia, and Canada in the not too distant future. So that's something else I would do to answer that question. All right, we could get bullish here and talk about why Bitcoin is going to go up in 2026. We could absolutely talk about that. Foxy's got 10 miners in Paraguay. Can always keep warm there. Again, it's not just me. Paraguay is a no-brainer if you're looking to escape the tax situation. Now, I absolutely did spend $10,000 on the whole process. So that included flights. That was me and my wife as well. So me and the wife and the process to get the tax residency. Again, I think it's a no-brainer. I don't have like a partnership with the guys at Plan B, but I mean, if you're looking for Paraguay tax residency, you should absolutely just go take advantage of it. I got there and the whole process was done in 3 hours. Super professional. Picked me up from the hotel, took me to Interpol, immigration office, police station, bang, 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 done in 3 hours. I love to see Poland hold out the way they have so far, but long term, I'm just not super optimistic. I actually have a really interesting thesis here on the uprising. So most of you guys know that we're, living in a fourth turning. So the authors of the fourth turning, a book written in, I think, 1997, they showed that every 90 years in history, the world, or the US, goes through a fourth turning. So you can trace it back every 90 years. 1930s and 1940s, what did we see? Hitler, Mussolini, World War II. Massive uprising. People pulled down institutions. We rebuilt new institutions. 90 years before then, American Civil War in the 1860s. 90 years before then, 1770s. You had the American and the French Revolution and the Declaration of Independence. Happens every 90 years. The authors say that our most present fourth turning, the 22-year crisis, that's what a fourth turning is, that started in 2008. And if history repeats, it should end by 2030. That's if history repeats. But I have a really interesting, I think it's interesting, it might not be. Tell me if you think it's shit in a moment here. But if you actually look at these fourth turnings, what created the Civil War and the Declaration of Independence and the restructuring of the monetary system after World War II in 1944 in the Bretton Woods and the creation of the World Bank, IMF, what happened? Was the people with the sanity, the 10%, the free thinkers, the 506 of you guys probably watching this unhinged rant on a Thursday afternoon. It's you guys who create the change and demand the change. The 80%, the masses, 80% of society, they just go along with what's easiest. Again, we saw that with all of the medical data, in like 2021, like 80% of people just didn't think for themselves. They just, I have to for work? Okay. I don't want to think freely. They just went along with it, okay? Now, what's concerning me about this fourth turning cycle is for the first time in history, we're going through a fourth turning cycle where it's actually really easy to leave the country. So think about this for a moment. We've got, is it 15,000 millionaires leaving the UK every year? Same thing in Australia. They're all moving to Dubai, Portugal, not so much Portugal, America. Why is that? And what does this change about the fourth turning cycle? Look, it's my thoughts that I'm less confident you're going to actually see a resolution in Western countries. Or at least you might not see one for a very long time. Because if you think about it, who's going to be left in the UK in 10 years? Think about it. The free thinkers won't be there. They won't be in California. They're not voting and demanding change. They're gone. Adios. I'm not in Australia. And I have a lot of Australian friends who, freedom-minded, they've left. They left a decade ago. They left 5 years ago. They left a couple years ago. So if you start thinking about things, you could really see a strange world where you have a complete bifurcation of society. All of the people who are thinking rationally for themselves, they leave. They're living in Argentina, Paraguay, Colombia, Mexico, Singapore, Thailand, El Salvador. And they're not going back. And they're the ones who's going to fight for change in the Western countries. If you don't have those people left in a Western country, you just have sheeple blindly obeying the insane laws that the bureaucrats are making. Again, it's a little bit of a new thought experiment. I've written a whole chapter on that in my book. So again, if you do want to learn a little bit more about that, maybe sign up to my email. I have a free email. I actually put out a New Year's deep dive for you guys today. As you can see, it's a little bit lengthy. It's extensive. It's long. It's big. I like to think it's good. I spent about 40 hours writing it, so I hope it's good. If you subscribe down below, you can check it out and give it a read. Again, it's free. I'm going to be putting a lot more focus on the emails this year, so check that out if you haven't seen it. That's where I will be releasing my book chapter by chapter. That's probably where I'm going to be talking a lot more about that concept. I'm just not sure how the fourth turning is going to play out. So if you're going to go to the America, I would go to the red states. Some comments I can't read in the chat, but Anthony, I agree. Clarify that comment, Survivor, and I'll answer it. Not entirely sure I understand that. My point is that all of the people that create change, the top 10%, they're gone. They're not sticking around waiting for the crisis that Foxy is talking about. That's what the fourth turning is. It is the crisis. Texas is a great state to go. If I was allowed to live in America, that's probably where I'd go. Wasabi Wallet's great. Great Bitcoin wallet. Yeah, this is what a lot of people are missing this. You can get a Trezor Safe 3, a hardware wallet, for $59 now. Again, I get it. Like, cost of living super high, money's tight, it's Christmas. But Trezor Safe 3 for $55, that's incredibly cheap. Highly, again, now is the time to get your hands on some hardware wallets. Again, Ledger also has some cheap options for you guys. Again, Ledger and Trezor, both great options, both been in the space for like 13 years. You can get a Nano S Plus for $59, a Nano X for $99. Hardware wallets don't have to be super expensive. There's good options out there. And again, what do I always tell you guys? If you do get a hardware wallet, please do not make the biggest mistake in Bitcoin. That's buy a hardware wallet, but then back it up by writing your 12 or 24 words on paper. Don't do that. Paper is not going to survive a fire, a flood, or anything life throws at it. This is why I always encourage you guys to get the titanium plates that Stampseed makes. They're an absolute no-brainer. Super easy to use. You can back up a hardware wallet in under an hour. Again, I don't think taking self-custody is that difficult. You can do a hardware wallet in an hour, and you can back up the hardware wallet in another hour on titanium. Again, Stampseed will give you 15% off on anything you buy with the promo code Luke15. Just take advantage of that. All right, we might get bullish here. So 2026 is such a short time frame. And you guys know I never make short-term predictions. You know, I like to tell you guys, I as well as everybody else has no idea where the price of Bitcoin is going in the short or the medium term. It's as simple as that. Nobody does. Anybody who tells you they do know with certainty, they're always trying to sell you a trading course or a trading something, or they're trying to take your money for some reason. If I had to guess, let me give you my thought process for what I'm looking at in 2026. So I think a lot of people are very confident that Bitcoin topped at $186,000, and we are now due for a 12-month bear market because this is what happened. This is what has happened multiple times before in history. So I'm just pulling up the chart. Apologies if I look distracted. So if I look at the chart of Bitcoin, I'm going to show you what I'm looking at. BTC USD. That's what I'm looking at. Let me make this big. So I'm going to show you again. This is, you guys asked, what's going to happen in 2026? I have no idea, and nobody does, especially these people trying to encourage you to trade your Bitcoin with a model. Don't trust them. What I think is interesting, again, to make the bear case, I'm not just a perma bull forever. To make the bear case, you can see every single time we lost the 50-week moving average, Bitcoin to enter the bear market. That is true. So this is the bear case that a lot of the 4-year cycle astrology guys are making. Every single time Bitcoin loses the 50-week moving average convincingly, we go into a bear market. And we just lost it recently. So again, I think I talked about this as we lost it, and I said, look, it's interesting. Look out below. This is the consensus view right now. I think the reason why we've seen these 4-year cycles is predominantly because the liquidity cycles have been 4 years. Now, let me show you what I'm looking at. Again, this was in the big deep dive email that I popped out. They're coming for your savings. We covered, I think I made 9 predictions in this about what I think is coming in 2026. The 9 big mega trends I'm watching. So again, free email, check it out down below. But what I'm watching is there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the 4-year cycle has turned into a 5-year cycle. So we can see we got Trump $2,000 stimmy checks coming in 2025. We've got interest rates above 3%. So they can be lowered a lot. We've got the business cycle has not even begun expanding. I'm going to share that chart and show it to you guys again. So again, historically, we've had this beautifully predictable 4-year business cycle. When the business cycle expands, liquidity expands, assets go up, including Bitcoin. What you can see is really interesting is this business cycle has been chopping sideways for 3 years. It's been under that 50 line. So that means the business cycle has essentially been in contraction. I'll talk more about the bear case here in a moment. But you can make an argument, liquidity hasn't even started to flow yet. We saw the money printers turned on just recently. Last night, we actually saw this, by the way. Let me show you this. We saw a big spike in the amount of liquidity being tapped in the Federal Reserve's emergency repo liquidity. 75 billion in a day. Again, some people have said, like, look, this is just yearly rebalancings. I haven't dived into it, so I didn't make a video on that today because I want to really understand it a little bit more before making a video on that. Could be some external explanations for why we're seeing so much liquidity being injected into the system. But I think it's interesting. We're seeing this. The money printers look to be turned on. New Fed chair coming. There's an argument to be made that maybe the 4-year cycle's turned into a 5-year cycle. I think that's interesting. Again, back to the bear case. I was looking at this chart. This chart was actually made about 150 years ago. And in the top and the middle line, it's predicting the years in which panics have occurred and will occur again. These are the years of good times, high prices, and times to sell stocks and values of all kinds. Again, this was created 150 years ago. To my limited understanding of the chart, I mean, look at the years it's called as a peak. 1927, a peak, 2 years before the biggest stock market crash in history. 1999 as a peak, 2 years before the biggest technology bubble stock blew up in the early 2000s. 2019, this is again on this top row, a year before we saw one of the fastest 35% crashes in history, 35% crash in 3 weeks. 2007, a year before the 2008 GFC. And again, this chart that was supposedly made 150 years ago is saying that 2026 is a year to sell. I think it's interesting. Again, you guys asked for my bullish take. I'm showing you both sides of the story, bullish and bearish. Because again, right now, I think markets are more unpredictable than ever before. I think it's super interesting. And something else I alluded to in this email that I fired off this morning is gold and silver just did something that they don't do very often. Where is that section on gold and silver? This is Bitcoin decoupling from the markets. That's interesting. But the thing I was looking for was gold and silver. I got too many bloody images in this thing. Again, I wasn't lying. I spent 40 hours writing this. Here it is. Okay, gold and silver. So let's look at the times that gold and silver both doubled in a 12-month period. Doesn't happen very often. As you can see, in the year 270 AD, right before the fall of Rome, silver doubled. In 1980, weeks before Volcker raised interest rates to 20%, gold doubled. Told you, the money was breaking. Volcker had to raise rates to restore trust in the money. And gold doubled again in 1922 and 1923, right before we saw one of the most catastrophic hyperinflations in history. Yeah, I'm not calling for the US dollar to hyperinflate next year. I have said that in 10 years, you're probably going to be left with the US dollar, Bitcoin, maybe the euro, maybe the Chinese yuan. I don't think there'll be many fiat currencies left. So be very, very careful. Be very, very, very careful. Be very, very careful. I think gold and silver is sending a signal. Speaking of signal, I was reading the comments. You guys cracked me up. Welcome to the Simply Bitcoin crowd. I saw a comment here. This is, by the way, this is a planned outage by Simply. Planned outage. Opti's, who knows if Opti's hungover. And somebody fill me in. What's the inside joke? Nico hunting for some honey. What have I missed? Does Nico like honey? Again, if you guys are not subscribed to Simply Bitcoin, you should be. Daily Bitcoin content. Have fun watching the Trend Twins. Yeah, to summarize that long tangent, I don't know where the price of Bitcoin is going to be in 2026. I made a bull case. I made a bear case. I think eventually all these models are going to be broken to the upside. And that's actually, here we go. Let me make a bull case. So I tweeted this out. Where is it? I had one too many coffees yesterday. I tweeted this. So 2025 was the year that the largest asset managers in the world opened up the portal, the $900 trillion portal of global wealth into Bitcoin. This year, BlackRock said that a 2% Bitcoin allocation was optimal. Again, $11 trillion asset manager. Morgan Stanley said that a 4% Bitcoin allocation is cool. And Bank of America, another multi-trillion-dollar bank, recommended their clients allocate 4% to Bitcoin. I said, this is more meaningful than most people realize because it's much harder to admit you're wrong and go from a 0% allocation to a 1% allocation to Bitcoin. That's the hardest thing to do. It's much easier to say, okay, 1%, 2%. Actually, I think a 25% allocation makes more sense. And that's what we're going to slowly begin to see. Because once you've got 1%, your foot's in the water, you start experiencing number go up technology. That's when naturally you're like, okay, diversification's a shit idea. Maybe I should just have more of the winning thing. So again, to answer the question, to get bullish, I thought, hey, these are three of the largest banks and money managers in the world. They're all admitting the 60-40 portfolio that's ruled the world for the past 50 years is dead. It's broken. The idea that 60% of your money should be in equities and 40% in bonds, it's done. Morgan Stanley's already come out and said 60-20-20 is a better portfolio allocation. 60% stocks, 20% bonds, 20% hard money. So I said, all right, what happens if the global asset managers who manage $50 trillion want to say, okay, how about a 10% Bitcoin allocation? What does the math say? Again, they're already at 2%, 4%, and 4%. It's not a far leap for them to be recommending 10% next year, the year after. What happens if they want to reallocate their funds to match their recommendations? And again, I'll remind you, if these guys are publicly recommending 4% allocations into Bitcoin, what do you think they're actually doing behind closed doors? As they jump from 0 to 1% publicly, privately, they're probably a lot bigger than 1%. And they probably do that before they publicly say, okay, I was wrong. 0% is wrong. You need 1%. Just a thought experiment. To anyone who says, 10% of global asset managers' money flowing into Bitcoin, it's a bit bullish. I don't think it is. So let's run the maths. 10% of that 50 trillion, that would represent $5 trillion of hypothetical demand coming into Bitcoin. Now, what's interesting is there's a limited amount of Bitcoin to buy. We know that. 10 million coins haven't moved in years. This is why there's a multiplier effect. That's what this chart on screen is showing us. So every dollar that flows into Bitcoin pushes the market cap up by around 6x today. So if you've got $5 trillion flowing into Bitcoin, using that 6x multiplier, we would actually get a $30 trillion market cap gain for Bitcoin. That would put Bitcoin above $1.5 million. And that is just if the global asset managers who control $50 trillion of wealth for their clients reallocate to a 10% position. Again, what happens if the $200 trillion bond market wants to get a 10% Bitcoin allocation when they come to the realization that, wait on a minute, I'm sitting on a melting ice cube? What happens if the $370 trillion grossly monetized real estate market says, hang on a minute. Why am I holding an asset that can be flooded, gets destructed in a hurricane? Why am I holding this thing? It's full of liabilities. It's not an asset. Why would I hold this? Well, I'm going to show you what happens to Bitcoin when that happens. Again, you asked me to get bullish. The only directionally correct model in the Bitcoin space I've seen is this. This is the stock to FOMO. And I think when you've got $500 trillion trying to port into Bitcoin, you're going to see something we've never seen before. We've never seen the creation of digital scarcity. Never. I think trying to predict how it's going to be adopted, nobody has any idea. This is why I like the stock to FOMO, and I think that the real price for Bitcoin is infinity. It's going to be going up forever, Laura. As simple as that. Elaine says in a few months it's going to take off. Happy New Year, Elaine. A few people are catching in on that. McLovin says all models will be destroyed. Incredibly bullish 2026 says down on the blues. I agree, my friend. Even if we see some short-term volatility. I did fix that link to Trezor. Had someone in the comments say that that link is broken. So again, if you do want to go get yourself a hardware wallet, that Trezor link is fixed. That's me, political asylum. I'm sure there's a lot of political asylums in the chat. I'm trying to answer all your comments, but there's a ton of you guys in here. Again, I should say Happy New Year's to the 648 of you guys tuning in between Twitter and YouTube. Hope you guys are having an incredible start to 2026. Happy New Year to everyone. Prepare yourselves for the hockey stick trajectory. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think it's going to happen quicker than most people think. Again, when that happens, when we do see that hockey stick, please do not make the pivotal mistake that everybody makes in the Bitcoin space. Do not sell your Bitcoin. This is why I always tell you guys to learn more about how you can borrow against your Bitcoin in a responsible way. Again, don't trust the people who just say, trust me, bro, I'll give you some yield. Don't do that. You should never give up your keys without understanding what you're doing. This is why I like Firefish. They're a Bitcoin lending marketplace. They don't take custody of your Bitcoin. They use multi-sig vaults to connect you to a lender. So you never sell your Bitcoin. Again, highly recommend you check them out. Bitcoin Open Lending Marketplace. As you can see, very top, you can see don't trust, verify. The Firefish source code is publicly available. They've literally open sourced their codes. You can go verify what they actually do, how they actually work. As you can see, they've got 3,500 Bitcoin that's gone through the platform. They're in 69 countries and 0 liquidations. The numbers absolutely tell a story. Again, if you want to use Firefish, they're going to give you a 30% discount if you use a promo code LUKE, L-U-K-E, it rhymes with puke. Oh, McLovin says, if you hit the like button, maybe Luke will get a much needed haircut. Yeah, I'm not having a good hair day to start 2026. Apologies, guys. You guys actually, I think we were on a stream the other day. Brandon was in the comments. He's not here today. He's probably hungover. Brandon from Green Candle. We said 200 likes on the live stream and I'll fly Brandon to Peru to shave this big dirty caterpillar on my top lip. All right. Oh, wait on. 100 likes. I don't know if you guys can get there. You guys got 100. If you get 200, I'm flying Brandon to Peru to shave the mo. I can see we're above 100. I'll give you guys another few seconds to get there. How about that? Because I just noticed I've been talking shit for the past 59 minutes. Man, didn't even notice. Time flies when you're having fun. Happy New Year to Sean and everyone today. All right, guys. No, you don't. So, yeah, all right. I said wax. 200 likes and I'll wax this big dirty thing. Guys, with all that said, I might end this one here. Again, if you join this late, highly recommend you rewind to the beginning of the stream. The EU and the UK are coming for your money. But be optimistic. We have solutions. It's Bitcoin. Again, the world is full of problem identifiers who haven't come across Bitcoin yet. If you have to grab a family and friend member by the shoulders and shake them into submission, go and do that. Maybe buy a little bit of Bitcoin for them. Give it to them when they're ready. Well, that said, cheers to all you beautiful people, and I'll see you all in the next one. Make sure you subscribe so you're notified for when the next one drops, but it will be dropping pretty soon. So I'll see you all then.